Hi everyone, my name is Riley Mole, and for my second project, I kind of switched. I was going to do a Google Classroom certification, but I was having some technical difficulties. So I switched to timeline of a subfield and history of it. So I'm going to do what the subfield of AAC devices because there's something I find really interesting and I feel like would be very beneficial to be more educated about. So I'm going to share my screen. However, I am having technical difficulties. For some reason, a lot of my images aren't popping up when I share my screen. So I'm just going to share my slides again like I did to my first project. I'm not sure why. They're not loading, and I feel like the images I find are really interesting, especially for AAC devices. So I'll make sure to share my slides. Okay. Okay, so first, what is an AAC device? So it's an augmentative and alternative communication. Something that I feel like is so interesting is, and just very beneficial to know, is there's so many different types of AAC devices. There's unaided, there's aided, and unaided can include facial expressions, gestures. It can include low tech and high tech as well. So low tech would be ASL. So there's just so many different types. Um, and I'll kind of talk about it, but it just started from like one communication board and now there's like hundreds of different types, it feels like. So it's just so cool how much it's grown just from the 1920s too. So it's kind of more recent, like in the past like few hundred years, which is super cool. So when an individual has speech communication or language impairment, an AAC device can be a communication aid for them. And then this was just kind of a fact I wanted to add. A lot of people don't think that if you're not, or they think only individuals that are non-verbal can benefit from an AAC device. But as long as you meet the guidelines, a lot of individuals that are verbal can still benefit from an AAC device. Okay, so the very first device was developed by a man called F. Hall Rowe, and then it was called F. Hall Rowe Communication Board. He had cerebral palsy and he assisted in the invention of the device. It first appeared in the 1920s. I couldn't find an exact date. And it also said online that he was like the co-creator, which I find I couldn't find who like helped him. So I can't give them credit as well, but he was the only person I could find that they mentioned a name. But they kept saying like co, so I'm not really entirely sure. But the device is very similar to how it is now. It was pretty big. I feel like now a lot of AAC devices are pretty big, the size of an iPad. Um, and they contain letters and numbers, and you would just kind of point to form little phrases and sentences. And then um, the Gora Khan Grotto Benevolent Society, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but they were the ones that started distributing it in the 1920s, this communication board. So from the 1920s to, oh, this page has images. I'll make sure to share my slides. Not loading, I apologize, but just images of what the first AAC device looked like. Again, it looked pretty similar to a recent one today, which is pretty cool. And it just has like numbers and letters on it. Okay, so technology advancements. So from the 1920s to the 1960s, there was a lot of advancements. A volunteer at a local hospital made the first advancements to the AAC device since the 20s, like kind of public advancements. And it was called the Patient Selector Operated Machine. And it was really cool. It was like a tube that they breathe through. I have a picture on this slide if it loads. Um, and it was also, there's a ton of advancements from the 1960s through the 70s because this is when the disability rights movement was also kind of getting started up. And it's just really cool. They were kind of both at the same time, the advancements with the AAC devices and then the movement as well. So from the 1960s through 1970s, a new AAC device was created. The talking brooch was the first one, and then right after that was the light writer. They're very, very similar. They had numerical codes for communication and even vocal outputs, which was a huge advancement, and we see it in almost every single AAC device now. is a vocal output. And then something else that I find really cool is that they were all like pocket size for the most part, super convenient to carry around, and pretty small, as you can see in this image down here. Okay, so now modern AAC devices. So like I discussed earlier, there's so many different types. There's unaided, aided, low tech, high tech. These are just different diagrams, and then this is a really good diagram as well. And I actually took a course that talked about AAC devices in depth, and it's a very individualized choice what device you use. And it just kind of comes down to the individual, the parents, their environment, what works best for them. If they want to point and like use more of the first one, the F whole row one communication board, where you can point to like form your own words and sentences. If you want to just use ASL, gestures, there's so many different types, and it's a very individualized choice, which I think is amazing that each family can kind of make their own judgments. They can even like try different ones. My professor that taught the course said that she would love to bring in like different AAC devices that she just had for different sessions, and she would let families like try it out to see which one they liked best. But overall, I found the history of AAC devices super interesting. I feel like there was so many technology advancements, and I feel like in the future, I just can't wait to see how more advanced they get to just benefit everyone that utilizes them. But that was my presentation on AAC devices for the history timeline of a subfield of speech pathology.